Alright, after you have polished this to your satisfaction, it is time to move on to this. You want to get rid of all this, basically you want to make the bottom here, so that way basically it's going to look exactly like that. So yeah. And get it down to about here. This will take you a long time to do. This took me a very long time to do actually. But again, you want to make sure that there's just barely, like very little shiny plastic left that needs to be gotten, so you can get it with the the fine sandpaper. And one more thing I'm going to say, I recommend you wear eye protection when doing this, because I don't know what was going on, but there were a number of times when things were flying up at my eye while I was doing this, so yeah. I didn't mention it in the materials because I didn't think it'd be necessary, but it'd probably be a good thing to use anyway. So yeah, here it is with, after rough. There it is after the fine sandpaper. And of course use standard paper. And of course there it is after the fine sandpaper has been applied. Alright, now the next step is to round off the edges and corners. Now this is something that you do not want to overdo. Yeah, do not overdo this. I mean, here, look at mine for instance. This should be a good representation of how much you want to do it. As you can see, not very much. And yeah. By the way, those holes there, don't cut your corners this much. That's a little too much there. Cut them about right to about there, or maybe even there. So, yeah. Sweet sickness, yes. Yeah, so that should give you a good representation of how much you want to do this. Oh, and speaking of those color imperfections I was telling y'all about earlier, yeah, there's some with, you can see right there, there's some with the yellow. Red's got a good bit. I mean, it's pretty crazy. Blue is a little bit lighter in the, yeah. One thing I wanted to show you though before I do this, look at how much plastic we still have left on the bottom layer. Yeah, you want to make sure you have a good bit of plastic there because, well, you don't want this breaking. So, yeah. Yeah, right about there should do it. And if you're wondering how it's round, like actual, like, how it actually, curves. As I was sanding it, I was turning it like this slowly and then bringing it back to give it that contoured look. As you can see, it's all done here, but as you can see, they're still pretty rough looking, and look at those corners. They're very, very sharp. If you look at a normal Rubik's Cube, you'll notice that the corners are not that sharp. And if you look at my 1x1, that they take on pretty much the same look. So the next step is to round down the corners. You really just want to do like, put it here, and then just go like back and forth, maybe like, oh, I don't know, 3 times at the most. So yeah. Alright, there, now it looks nice and, well, rounded. Now, one thing I like to do after this is to use fine sandpaper to smooth out everything, but I like to sand down the whole thing, meaning I'll start with the edges, then do the corners, maybe, then I just go ahead and do it to the faces, because, especially on this one, because if you look, I don't know what was up with these particular Legos, but these are not put together very, very regularly at all. Look at how much, look at that ledge. I mean, that's unacceptable. So, yeah, I'd just like to do that, and then I'll show you what it'll look like after that. Alright, here it is after doing the edges and corners, and you'll notice something immediately that after you do that, you'll start taking on the general feel of a Rubik's Cube, like, I don't know, after you do that, it just feels so good in the hand. I mean, one thing I really like about this thing that it's just fun to hold. I mean, I know that sounds a little weird, but it really is. I mean, if you want to know what it feels like, let me just feel a little off topic. Feels like this thing. Right here, you see this? I've reviewed this in the past if you want to check it out, so it's my Apple USB power adapter. It's not like holding it, except that these are sharp here, but still. Yeah, in fact, this almost feels better in the hand, so, yeah. And it's homemade, and, if it feels better than an Apple product, that's pretty crazy. Wow. Alright, but now we're just going to go ahead and do the sanding to the faces, so so that we can get those awful scratches off. So yeah, I'll show you what that's going to look like. Alright, now little shiny spots like that, those are okay as long as you cannot feel them if you rub it. Like I can feel this one, so I know I need to go a little further, but if it feels totally smooth, just sand weight it a little bit more just to, you know, possibly get rid of it. And yeah, if it's just stubborn or something, but you cannot feel it and you swear it, and rub it both ways, like this and like this, so that way, you know, if you maybe you can't feel it this way, it feels fine like this, but if I do it this way, there's definitely a ledge there, so yeah. Letting y'all know about that, because the stickers will lay a little bit weird if you leave those there. It'll look all strange, so yeah. Finally. Yeah, that took a lot of sanding. Now, if you yours did require a lot of sanding, look at the edges. Make sure they're still round enough to your, you know, liking. I personally think that's a little too sharp. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sand them down back a little bit with fine sandpaper. Do not use rough, use fine. Because remember, this isn't very thick plastic, and you do not want to get it, you know, to the point where it'll just like break in your hands or such like that. So yeah, this is pretty ridiculous. The amount I had to sand it, they appear to be about the same size. Let's check this way. Yeah, it's definitely a little bit shorter. It's probably a bit rectangular, but you can barely tell anyway, so yeah. That looks much better, I must admit. So yeah. Another thing that did was, ooh, that's a lot of shiny right there. Oh crap. But another thing it does is it makes it more uniform, which is also essential, but that little shiny part there, which I can feel, needs to go. And finally, just use the paper technique. Again, just, you know, use it on each individual face, like this, to get them back to their shiny. So yeah. And of course, when you're done getting all the faces, get the edges and corners. Just like that. And that will give it a nice little shiny look. Well, you couldn't see it for some reason, the glare didn't go, but it's very shiny now. Awesome. Now if you want to get even shinier, you can use standard, like, loose leaf paper. That can be notebook paper or graph paper or whatever, because I think that has a higher grit than just copy paper, so yeah, but I'm not going to worry about that. It looks pretty good as it is. I mean, it's, yeah, it's very nice. I don't know if this is, you know, fooling me or not. Like, it's, I don't know, some of these just kind of feel a little flimsy. Like, I might have gone a little too far, which I'm not surprised if I did, because that was a lot of sanding needed. And I think I am kind of cracking into it, which really ticks me off. Oh well, maybe the paint will cover it, which we're going to do right now.